Hey everybody, so this is Ginger again coming at you from Traveler's Mindset, and here today on our interview series we have Michael Bennett of Muddy Shoe Adventures. He is the founder and managing director. And I am so pumped to talk to you, Michael, about, baking travel into your work life, baking work into your travel life, how you sustain yourself as a travel-y sort of a guy. I know you're super adventurous, so I kind of want to talk about that too, but first of all, welcome.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here. I'm glad to have a conversation with you.
Yeah, totally. So, where did you get started in all of this? I'm assuming you weren't just, born and then you were a traveler automatically. It had to come from somewhere, right?
Totally, yeah. So, when I was young, we traveled a lot as a family, but never anything exotic. It was like Myrtle Beach or the Jersey Shore, or I think we went to Toronto once or twice, and that was like a big deal. But for me, it really started when I was 19. I was a sophomore in college, and I went to Costa Rica for like a 6 week language culture immersion experience in San Jose, and then we kind of traveled throughout the country, and that was really the first like international kind of mind blowing travel experience for me. So much happened during that trip. I got hit by a car and almost died.
What? Whoa,
Yeah,
whoa, whoa. Press pause. Okay. Now, everyone has nightmares about being abroad and having something terrible happen, but you actually had that happen. So, what did that do for the rest of your time there, and how did you get through it? What happened?
yeah. It was I was out running with my roommate. We were trying to get some exercise after all the beans and rice and all that, and yeah, car just kind of took a quick left. We didn't expect it, hit me, and I went flying through the air and was
Wow.
unconscious and had a concussion and had some broken bones and scrapes and bruises. But um, it ended up being, frankly, like one of the highlights of my trip because and I look back now. I'm 36. I look back and it's half a lifetime ago for me now, and that was really what started this existential quest for me. It was like, wow, like life is short. Like I could die today or tomorrow,
Totally.
and the rest of that trip, I really spent. Of course, I was physically recovering, so I couldn't do some of the things that the rest of my group was doing, and it gave me time to really think about like, what do I want to do? Like, where am I? Like, I'm in
Mm.
college. I'm studying this degree that I don't really want, but it's because my parents and grandparents are paying for it, and they want me to study business. And but really,
Mm.
what is it that I'm passionate about? Like, and really, I like to think that accident really started this whole process of me understanding myself better, but also understanding that travel is a great tool for transformation.
Nice. Yeah, I would totally agree with that. And I think it's awesome that you had that chance and then took it that way because I think a lot of people might they might get depressed or, feel like their trip is ruined. But you sat with yourself and you said, well, wow, okay, wait a minute. Like, what do I want to do with my life? That's awesome.
Yeah, it was interesting. At the time, I think Into Thin Air had just come out, John Krakauer's book, and I was reading it. And so I had a chance to really dive into it as I was on the trip, kind of on the mend a little bit after the accident. And I decided right then and there that I was going to go climb mountains in Washington State with one of the guiding companies that led the trips to Everest. And I really think that was in an ironic kind of twist that accident and that trip to Costa Rica was really the start of my life as a traveler, and really trying to continue to expand my horizons and my perspectives, not only of myself, but of others through travel.
Totally. So that's what you're still doing now. I know we talked a little bit about this
Yeah.
beforehand, but can you give us an idea of what you offer as transformative experiences to people?
Yeah. So I started Muddy Shoe Adventures a couple years ago. And the
By the way,
idea
I
was,
love the name. I think it's great. Like muddy shoes, you're in the thick of it. You're actually adventuring, you're trekking or something like that. So nice name. Love it.
that's it, right. You're right. It's got this idea of a very immersive, very experiential type thing, not just like on a tour bus. Like you're
Totally.
really getting into it. Yeah. I started Muddy Shoe a couple years ago, and it was really came from this idea that travel has changed my life and transformed my life, um, and I know many others, right? Certainly I'm in the majority there. But what I found, and I had done some research for my doctorate, and the research was about the psychology of adventure and how do people change, and why do they change? What is it about an adventure, and or travel experience that really creates these life changing transformations for people? And the biggest thing, or one of the biggest things, was that they had somebody there that was there to kind of guide this process of reflection and help them use whatever experiences that they had
Hmm.
on this travel experience to as reflection points, and
Yeah.
start thinking about what that means for their lives and how they're going to use all of these amazing things that they're learning. And so it was from that I was like, well, I don't know that there's any companies out there that do this type of work, that combine coaching, if you will, with travel, or organizational consulting with travel. And so that's what I'm doing now. That's what we do at Muddy Shoe. And so we have programs for both the individual traveler, people like you and I who are kind of in search of maybe just some change in our lives, or maybe we feel a little lost, or bored with our jobs, or whatever it might be. We give people a chance to go out there and travel the world and do some amazing things, go to places like Norway and Switzerland and Italy and Southeast Asia and Costa Rica and Patagonia and all those places. But they go with somebody from my team. Maybe it's me, maybe it's one of my colleagues, but we're there to kind of help them process and use these amazing experiences as ways to learn more about themselves and others.
Oh, that's huge.
That's what we're up to now. Yeah.
That's like amazingly huge. And I love that you made this on the basis of the actual psychology of adventure, because I think, and maybe you can like fill me in here, but like there are certain things that happen in my mind when I'm traveling that I actively try to incorporate that mindset into my everyday life, like hence the traveler's mindset, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the whole point, is to have that wherever you go. So I'm actually kind of curious, like what are those elements of adventure or whatever for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. It all ties back to, and you and I talked about this the other day, but a lot of the Joseph Campbell work and the hero's journey and all of that, and it's such an interesting framework. And in my research,
just a second, I don't know if everyone knows, like everyone who's watching or listening knows what the hero's journey is. So maybe let's go into that at just a second.
Yeah. Okay. So real quickly, the 30-second version of Joseph Campbell. He was a mythologist that lived back in the 20th century. He died in, I think, 1987. But he spent years and years and decades of his time studying different cultures and the different stories and myths that they told, creation myths and everything else, rites of passage, etc. And what he did was he identified this common theme. He called it the monomyth, this common story that almost every story ever told can follow this script. And George Lucas, the guy that directed and wrote Star Wars, like, that was all he followed. He and Joseph Campbell were like very close, and he used a lot of this in there. The Wizard of Oz is another one that gets quoted a lot, and because it's a very it's this big journey and
right.
There's all this stuff. But the macro level concept is for the hero's journey is that there's a separation, right, where the hero is called to an adventure. Something is going on in their lives, and they need, whether it's forced upon them or it's kind of this intrinsic, motivation to change and transform. They go to this place. They cross the threshold of adventure, is what Campbell calls it. They enter the belly of the whale, from Moby Dick, and they have this amazing transformational experience where they go through this rite of passage and an initiation. And there are people that are there, they're helpers that help them not only survive but also learn and process what's going on. And then eventually, once they've learned whatever it is that they're supposed to learn, or they've won whatever it is that they're supposed to win, they've slayed their dragon, they return home and they share what they've learned and this prize with the community at large, and everyone, including themselves, is transformed. And so that's
totally,
kind of
that was amazing. You just rocked that synopsis. Like, well done.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I should know.
Right?
So,
cool.
So we baked that into a lot of what we do at Muddy Shoe, and it really correlated with my research findings. What I found, there were 7 kind of core themes, right? And the first was that people were called to adventure. There was this sense of craving something else, something that they didn't have right now, and so whether it was figuring out what they want to do with their career, or reconnecting with, a spouse or a partner or a child. There was a whole series of different things, but everybody went with a reason, with a purpose. And then they also went places that were foreign to them. They went places that made them a little uncomfortable, and so I call this the zone unknown. It's this area where people go and they're not sure. Maybe it's the geography and the landscape and the topography, or maybe it's just the culture and the social aspects of what's going on there, but some place that just naturally challenged them. And what was cool about that was that it enabled them to really disconnect, not only physically but psychologically, from all of the stuff that was going on back at home, and to really kind of see things with fresh eyes and from new perspectives, because they weren't tied to roles and responsibilities and all of the things that they had back at home. And so while they were there in this new place, this new zone, they had all kinds of challenging experiences. Again, it could have been cultural or physical or psychological, social, whatever it might be. And all of them had someone that was there that really helped guide them through these challenges.
Yeah.
And then ultimately led them through this process of reflection and introspection about what they're learning and what was going on this experience. And so that inevitably led to them creating an action plan and coming home and really implementing that plan, and not just coming home with like, hey, that was a great trip, but really coming home with a purpose and an intention to like change their lives and the lives of those around them.
Totally. Awesome. So basically that's what you're trying to do through these adventures and through probably anytime you encourage someone to travel. I'm sure both of us do that a lot.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. I mean, whether you're going through us or with us on a Muddy Shoe adventure, or you're, going on your own or with a group of friends, it doesn't matter. I mean, the process, remains the same, and of course, there's a value added in going with us because we add certain areas of expertise, but that doesn't mean that that's the only way to do it.
Totally. And I found that almost the times where I've been on the road and it's been like very, I hesitate to use the word organic because it's so cliche now, but where I've met mentors along the way, that's been a huge learning for me because it's really taught me that like really anywhere you go in the world, there are people that will help you and that will really want you to succeed. And also, of course, if you meet other travelers, they're even more willing to help you because they've been in your shoes before,
Yeah, absolutely.
Or expats as well, people living and working in other countries. Same deal.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, and that's one of the last of my themes and my findings from the research was just that. It was people that they've remained open to experience. And so, you might be in, Costa Rica doing whatever, but you can't predict what's going to happen. And everything is so emergent and so organic, and you just don't know what's going to happen. And so kind of having this traveler's mindset of, staying open to experience and just being able to just go with the flow and figure that whatever comes along is what's supposed to happen. And I'm going to go with it and I'm going to use it. That was certainly a very important factor for sure.
Sweet. So then how do you incorporate that mindset into your everyday life?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, starting a business and being an entrepreneur is certainly quite the journey. It's quite an adventure, and
True.
And applying that to this, I felt called. I came from a background where I'd done, corporate consulting and training and development and leadership development for over 6 years, and then beyond that or before that, higher education, which was great, and I loved all those experiences. It was super valuable, but there was something that was missing for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I bring that calling to the work that I'm doing now, and really feel like that what I'm doing makes a difference, and I'm inspired to do that. And there's things that I do every day, literally every day, that make me uncomfortable.
Nice.
Whether it's calling a big travel company and wanting to start a conversation about a partnership with them,
mm-hmm.
or getting on the phone with a potential client. As exciting as that is, it's also a little nerve-wracking.
Sure.
There's things that happen all the time, and then I'm always bringing those learnings and those insights back. At the end of the day, at the end of the week, at the end of the month, at the end of the year, to figure out like what am I learning and how do I take all of those good things and put it into what's next for me, and then figure out what didn't work and discard that. So it's certainly this trial and error, and it's a big adventure for sure.
For sure. Sweet. And I like how there's that, like, it's useful for business owners or entrepreneurs as well. It's not just for travelers or someone who's leaving the country and going to do something crazy on the other side of the world. It's like, this can actually help you take on risks and challenges every single day in your life, like right where you are.
Absolutely. I mean, there's things that we all do every single day, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, where you can really push your comfort zones, where you can really step out and do things that are maybe beyond what you thought you were capable of. And these are all lessons that you learn from traveling. You get these experiences traveling, and certainly there's always a plethora of opportunities for you to apply that in your daily life, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Sweet. So thinking back, so this is like a question I love asking people because it kind of forces them to think about their child self or at least maybe someone else in their shoes 10 or 15 or 20 years ago even. And I always ask, like, if you were to tell yourself, your fearful self, the self that is anxious about travel, that's kind of scared to maybe learn another language or even take that first step and buy that first international ticket, like what would you tell yourself to make you do it? or to convince you to do it?
Well, I was excited. I mean, when I started, I was the
Yeah.
one that was like driving that, and my family were the ones that were like, "Don't go, don't go." But
Oh,
I think
totally.
that
Yeah.
I think for someone who's considering it and maybe kind of a little bit unsure, the world is your oyster, and there's so much out there, and traveling, learning from different people, experiencing different places. It is the most mind-opening, heart-opening, experience you can really ever have, and your world and your mindset, and you will never be the same, even from that first initial experience. And there's a reason. There's a travel bug. I mean, and I firmly believe that it's not traveling for the sake of traveling. I think that people travel and they get the travel bug because they get addicted to transformation. They get addicted to
Nice.
learning things about other people and themselves. And once you start that ball, gets rolling, you can't stop it. It's such an addictive thing. It really is.
Yeah.
It's almost like a drug. And
Totally.
but in a very positive way.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. I've talked about this with other guests before, and it really is. It's like you start associating these like positive experiences with your positive states of being when you're on the road, and they're obviously, if you have a positive experience, you're going to want to go after that again. So it becomes, like you said, this like snowball, this seeking transformation and seeking connection, and all of that, like the rush and the exhilaration of like an exotic place or meeting new people. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. What I found interesting is that it's when I'm traveling that I really feel like I'm kind of at home, and I'm being who I am. I'm not forced into a role or a series of responsibilities. I'm just out. I'm being my authentic self. You know what I mean? And it's so fun. It's so liberating. It's like to not have responsibilities. Of course, you can't be completely careless, but like
of course.
But yeah, it's just such an invigorating experience that I think when people, if they're considering traveling and trying to figure out what that might be for themselves, then I would certainly encourage them to do that.
Sweet. So you mentioned actually something that I think holds a lot of people back even more strongly than their own fears or frustrations about travel, is that actually family members and friends can hold you back, or they can try to hold you back. So
Sure.
I'm kind of curious. You said that your family was like pretty against you going out there when you first started. How did you deal with them? Like, how did you convince them to just relax and like let you go?
Yeah, and of course, to their credit, they weren't. I think they were just more scared than they were against me going. Of course.
Sure.
But I think that for a lot of people, especially when you're younger, that you're going to face the same challenges. And I think helping, whether it's friends or family, just understand that you're doing this, almost as a rite of passage. That we, in our society these days, I really feel like we've lost a lot of that. We've lost this transition point from being like a child or a teen or even a young adult to really being an adult, and and all of the things that go along with that, which are amazing. And I think that traveling can really just expedite that process in a very good way. And kind of just sharing the fact that you're going because you want to find out more about yourself. You want to find out who you are and what you're about, and crossing that threshold of adventure, right, as Campbell says, and challenging yourself is the best way to do that. And there's benefits not only for yourself, of course, but for everyone. Right? You come back more inspired, with broader perspectives, and so you bring all of these amazing things back to your family and your friends, and you're inspiring them to travel and to grow and develop and all this stuff. So that's what I would say. You're doing it for yourself as your own personal growth, but you're also doing it, at the end of the day, it does end up benefiting just about everybody you come in contact with.
Yeah, those ripple effects are huge. I mean, can you imagine if like every single American had a passport and like would leave the country just once and then come back? It'd be amazing.
It really would. It really would be amazing. And yeah, I'll give you an example. My brother, he's an amazing guy, but he had never really traveled, and it was after my travel experiences and coming back, and he, really seeing the way that my perspectives had shifted, he's like, all right, I want to do this. And so we started taking trips together almost on an annual basis.
Awesome.
So, Europe a couple times and a bunch of other places. And it was, and so, yeah. And his friends then started traveling. I mean, I was in Copenhagen at one point, and he had been traveling, we had been traveling together for a couple of years. And then he got his friends who had never traveled outside the country to come to Copenhagen. and visit there. And so like it does. There really
great.
is a ripple effect, and it becomes infectious for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah. So it's funny because then you think about like yourself as just like a single person. You're doing it for yourself, but then once you could actually become that person in your friend group who becomes the adventurer and then shares that mindset or like that energy with everyone around you. I think that's just so cool. Yeah.
It is, and without getting political at all. I mean, I
No.
certainly think when you look at our world today and all the things and all the challenges that we're dealing with, I mean, I firmly believe, and I know many others do as well, that traveling is an incredible way to foster understanding.
Yeah.
And appreciation of other cultures. And it's not to say that one is right and one is wrong, but it's simply, hey, they're different, and I may not agree with the way you do that, and you may not agree with the way that we do this, but that's okay because we can respect each other.
Exactly.
And it's hard to do that through the television. It's hard to do that through the internet. You can only get that kind of experience and that sense of appreciation when you travel.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially when we think of business, right? Or like college students graduating, or, let's say you've been in the corporate world for a few years and like they're having to be more international in their business interactions too. Yeah. Traveling, it's like the number one way that you can start to understand your foreign colleagues, and hopefully like all of the business stuff that maybe was a challenge before, it would just dissolve really.
Yeah, there is no such thing as everything is global business, I guess is the best way to put it. Right?
Yeah.
Even the little store at the corner that's selling, sodas and cigarettes and milk. I mean, they're getting their products from all over the world, and so all of these global impacts affect their business. And so the more you know and the better you understand all of those dynamics, the better off you're going to be. And travel is certainly a way to do that.
Totally. And I think one of the things that you really start noticing is that everything, like literally everything, is connected. And like the ripple effect that you would have as an individual traveler on people, I mean, that's just one thing, but the ripple effect of like everything that you buy, everything that you do, everything you consume, like that, like every single person on this world is connected. There are very few degrees of separation. So you're never alone. And that's another big thing. And I'm sure you felt this as well, is that when you start actually like realizing how connected you are, you feel supported, you feel loved, you feel like just really energized.
Totally. One of my favorite experiences is I've got a very good friend in Germany, and I visit him almost every year, and despite the language differences and despite, some cultural differences and all, the conversations we have are so awesome. And and what they come down to is that we're all the same. We're people, and despite the differences, which are amazing, we share so much in common, and things that impact, him, or, society over there and what we're doing over here. Like it's all interrelated and it's all interdependent. And, the butterfly, flaps its wings and that's exactly what happens. It's really cool to see that. And, as you, I'm sure, have experienced yourself, when you travel, you have friendships and people that you know all over the world, and when you are able to interact with them and you kind of see how different global events or even just economic trends impact everybody, it is a fascinating thing for sure.
Yeah, sweet. So let's start to wrap this up, and maybe you can give us a little sense of what your next step is with Muddy Shoe Adventures or with your own personal travel adventures. Like what's the next comfort zone push for you?
Yeah, so this year is going to be a big year, an exciting year for Muddy Shoe.
Mm-hmm.
Last year we did a lot of trips in the Southern California area where we're based, and so surfing adventures, hiking adventures, those kinds of things, which were awesome.
Yeah.
And seeing how much people learn and how much they can change just from a one day or a very short program is super inspiring. And this year in 2015, we're really pushing the limits, pushing our own comfort zones a lot by offering longer trips all over the world.
Oh, nice.
This is the first time that we've really done that. We've had some regional and local trips, but this year we've got trips to Norway and Italy and Costa Rica and Switzerland and Southeast Asia coming up. And
it's awesome.
It's exciting, and it's
a lot of work. Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. But it's so much fun. And this kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier about bringing that sense of adventure and that traveler's mindset into our work, whether you're running a travel company or not. You're forced to be creative. You're forced to think outside the box. You're forced to adapt and adjust, and everything is so organic and emergent. And so that's what we're dealing with now, and it's part of the fun, and it makes no 2 days are the same, but they're all amazing. And I used to work a typical corporate job and put in my 8 or 10 hours and punch the clock and go home and totally disconnect. And now every day I'm up at 6 or 6:30 and I'm on email, and I got to tear myself away from the computer at 7 at night. Not because I'm a workaholic, because I'm having fun.
Totally.
So there's so much good stuff coming up this year for Muddy Shoe, and we're really growing and expanding. It's going to be a great year for us.
Awesome. Well, if I can help you guys in any way, I'd be more than happy to, because I love what you're doing and I think it's so, so necessary. And especially that you guys have mentorship and that coaching involved, it's huge. So yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much. It's been really fun. And
yeah, thank you. It's been a blast.
Yeah. And obviously, as usual, I'll include all the links in the bio below. So yeah, you can check Muddy Shoe Adventures out there and let us know if you have comments or questions. So thanks, Mike.
Sounds awesome. Thanks, Ginger.